Well, a lot of you guys say you should make an RC paper airplane. Well, I did make this thing out of Depron a while ago, but it's not, legit paper. So, to make an RC paper airplane, you're gonna need one of these. Okay, for this project, we're gonna need one of these tiny toy quadcopters. Now, these are like the ultra micro sized ones. As you can see, it's really small. I did try some of the larger varieties, but they just didn't work as well. They were too heavy, or they weren't tuned right. So try to get the ones that are like super small. And this thing usually retails for around $15. We picked it up at Menards. So they're super cheap and you can get them almost anywhere. So to begin, we're gonna need to go and dismantle this. Alright, part of the procedure to take this one apart is I gotta pull the propellers off. Now it's important to remember where you pull the props off from, so let's see. This is going forward on the little quadcopter, so I know that's forward. And I know the one that says B is here and the one that says A is on this side. So I'm just gonna pull them apart, set that one over here. I'm basically making a quadcopter on the table just so I remember propeller orientation for later. And I pull a shell off. And the dismantlement is pretty much complete. Okay, now that you got this apart, it's time to determine which one you want to build. Now, I did make a nice 3D printed one you guys can print out and build yourself. This takes literally just like 5 minutes to print, and it's super easy and light. Or you can simply make one out of scrap foam. I'm going to show you both options because not everyone has a 3D printer or wants to print one of these out. So let's build both of them because they're both really simple and they work almost exactly the same. So grab yourself a piece of foam, and we're going to cut this thing out. Okay, for this thing, I'm going to make it maybe about 4.5 inches. It really doesn't matter. You guys can experiment with it too, but 4.5 inches is a good number to start off with. So I'm just going to draw a line there. I'm going to make a measurement about 1/2 inch because that's how much I want of this foam. And you can use any kind of foam too. This is some of the flight test model airplane foam, but you can use foam from like a Chinese takeout or Dollar Tree foam board as well, because it's basically the same thing. And we're going to remove the paper anyways for maximum lightness. So now you should have these two things if you do one or the other. Okay, now comes the little technical part. Now it's the time where we determine which motor set do we want. Now for this, these quadcopters have built-in accelerometers and gyroscopes. So basically what that means is they detect movement on any axis. And we are going to use that to our advantage for stability because when the quadcopter or airplane in this case tilts to one side, it's going to speed up one set of motors and slow the other one down to make it stable, and also we do that for steering as well. So to determine how that's going to work, we need to look at the quadcopter itself. Now most of these toys, you should be able to copy exactly what I'm doing and you should be fine. But we're going to take the rear set of motors and use them for our control. The first ones we're just going to cut off and discard and toss aside. But if we look from the quadcopter, we notice that this way is forward. And we see that the blade turns like this, and this one turns like that. So we're going to use the rear set. And luckily for us, this one is from Toys R Us. It's exactly the same as the one I bought from Menards. So I think almost all of the cheap Chinese quadcopters use the same motor propeller orientation. So you're going to need a soldering iron and some solder, and I'm going to go ahead and take this thing apart. Also, when you remove these motors, it's highly critical that you remember which one goes where. We'll notice that on the left side right here, we have the ones with the black and white wire, so we're going to go and unsolder this one, like so, and put it over here to our left, and do the same thing with the right. Now when you unsolder this too from the front ones, you want to make sure that these pads aren't shorted out and you haven't hit anything, because if you do, you could ruin the flight controller. Alright, now that we have our two little motors out, we're fortunately going to need some extensions, so we're going to need to find a source of wire somewhere. So if you have some old toys or something, or anything electronics that are fairly small, try to find that for wire. But you got this old VHS camcorder. It's gonna find some wires out here. Oh, this looks pretty good. So I have this little really thin gauge wire. It's got a positive and negative, and we're going to use this. Okay, so now we need to cut some segments of this wire. 2 inches will do the little 4-inch foam piece. So if you cut that there, we'll have that. And we're going to cut this one. And we're going to get that. So that ought to do it. Now I'm pretty much going to just strip these. Quick tip, if you don't have wire strippers, you can just simply heat up the end of the vinyl wire and pluck it off. And now we have our little bits of wire. So we're going to go ahead and solder these onto the board and do that. I'm also using 6040 rosin core solder for all of you who are wondering. This is basic electronic solder that mostly everyone uses. Now you also want to solder positive to positive and black to black. Same story here. Okay, now that the leads are soldered on, we're going to go and solder the motor back on. So positive goes to the white in this case, and the negative goes to the black. Just going to use a little heat shrink to shrink down one of the ends. You can do both, but it's not super necessary on something like this. And you're going to do the same thing for the other side. Now, you should get something that looks like this. Now, if you notice, this is forward because there's a little actual indentation on the board too, on the quadcopter board. So we have our black and white motor wire on this side and our black and blue motor wire, or red and blue motor on this side. So we're going to put the blades back on, and if you remember, our white and black motor wire uses the B propellers. And for those of you who are just wondering, that goes clockwise too. So this propeller turns this way. And the one on this side, it uses the A one, which goes counterclockwise. So this should be turning this way. Now we're done with the little subframe assembly. We're going to make the little frame parts that we're going to mount our paper airplane now. So, fortunately, I also made an extra set of these because we're going to do the 3D printed one too, and the foam one. The 3D printed one uses the slightly smaller wires, but you can just trim and fit them to your needs. This is still a little bit longer for playing around and experimentation. Okay, now we need to find the center of our foam piece, so let's just put that there and make a quick mark. Now I'm going to take our little quadcopter board thing, put a small dab of hot glue on it. Take this thing and simply just stick it on. Now if you remember, we're still in the forward orientation here, so this thing will go that way. And we're going to take a little bit of hot glue and put it on the ends. And stick our motors on like so. And do the same thing for the other side. Okay, we're going to set this one aside and let's do the 3D printed one. So, same story here. We have the forward orientation here, and we got our right and our left motor. Let's put a little blob of hot glue on there. And you can stick this piece on. Now these should actually just fit right in, so you can just kind of tuck them in there, and it's a little bit of a friction fit, but you should be able to slide it in. And if you want, you can secure these with a little bit of glue if your motor mounts are loose. But for me, these are tight enough that these motors shouldn't work themselves out. Actually, this one's really tight. There we go. Okay, that pretty much takes care of that. Okay, so now we got our power plant, power pod thing assemblies. We're gonna need to fold a piece of paper into a paper airplane. Now I know there's a lot of videos on how to do this on YouTube, but some people do it good, some people don't do this well. We're gonna make the standard de facto paper airplane for these, so you're gonna need an A4 piece of paper, which is like a, Sam, is that 11 by 9.5 or is it 11 by 9? Do you know? Or is it 10.5?
8.5?
11 by 8.5?
No,
That's
not
right.
A4.
This is A4.
No.
This is A4 paper. I want to Google that right now. Hang on. Oh, it's 8.27 by 11.69. That's a really weird measurement for an A4. So, whatever. This is standard paper. That's 8.5 by 11. But whatever.
What?
This is 8.5 inches by 11.
What did I say?
I don't know. You said something weird.
8.5 by 11.
Oh wait, you did. Is that right? Oh, that is 8. Okay. Whatever. I don't remember. I don't retain information very well. So, this is standard 20-pound paper, and now we're going to fold this into a paper airplane. I don't know why it's got 20-pound paper either. I'm sure someone will tell me in the comments section. We're going to fold that down the center. Now, the way to do this is to simply just fold it in half, line the corners up. Once you're sure that's lined up properly, you're just going to take a Sharpie or your finger or whatever is kind of a hard, and fold it down.
Here's a hint. It has to do with the number of papers and the weight.
I don't believe you. Is it? Okay. Well, anyways, now we need to do this. So let's fold this in. So we're gonna grab the side, bring it right to this crease line in the center, and then fold that. Now we're gonna fold this side in too. And these points should pretty much meet up right in the center. And then we're gonna grab this corner and fold it in to this line. Do the same thing for the other side. Now you don't need to fold these super tight right up to the center. If you notice, I'm leaving just a little bit of like a millimeter gap just to make it easier to do the inboard fold. Now before we go any further, I'm actually going to tape the center down. It just basically keeps these little pockets even on both sides of the airfoil. That way the plane doesn't pull to the left or to the right too hard. Now you can fold this whole thing closed. Just give it a good crease. Now if you have a ruler handy, you're going to look back here. And maybe about an inch and a quarter, we're going to make a mark right up here. I'm going to flip this over. And we're going to kind of roll our fingers under here, kind of get a good fold going. Kind of just taper it back. And right where that mark meets up, we're going to fold that down. Just crease that again. Flip it over. And you can simply just match this half up with this side here. Now we're just going to go ahead and open this up a little bit. Just kind of run your fingers along the bottom. And you should get something that's like this. We're also going to fold the winglets up too, because I noticed this does improve the amount of lift we do, because it keeps some of the excess air from spilling off the ends of the airfoil. So this fold is only just about, let's say that fold's just about a half an inch. Is that half an inch? A little under half an inch. You can open that. And our paper airplane is complete. Okay, now that we have our simple paper airplane. Oh wait, I forgot one thing, hang on. We need to add trim tabs to these for adjustments, so just make a quick cut here, there.
Yep.
Okay, we forgot to make these, but we need these for trimming our paper airplanes out. These just go up a little bit, they're just little elevator trim tabs. So now that we got these done, let's assemble the quadcopter boards to these. Now this is fairly simple, but from this paper airplane design, the center of gravity is about right here, because you can see I'm balancing with my fingers. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So right where we know where that bounce is, I'm just going to take a Sharpie and just make a quick line here, just like that. Now we're going to take our little quadcopter brain board thing and line it up there. And we're just going to tape or glue this on. I'm just going to go ahead and glue it on because I have the hot glue gun handy. So I put a small dot here, a small dot there. It's important not to go crazy with the hot glue because this stuff is actually pretty heavy. Oh, for this thing too, I may bend the battery down just a little bit to kind of save room. That should go in like that. That'll go in like that. And you should also make sure that your propellers don't come into contact with the wing of the paper airplane as well. For assembling this one, you may need to heat this section up and pinch it, like so. I've already kind of melted this one, but we'll just melt it again just for fun. So we just heat up this PLA a little bit, and then squeeze it, just to kind of get it to shrink in. And now you take your airplane, and if you mark the center of gravity, you'll notice that it's kind of like right here. But I know the center of it, and this one is actually adjustable. You don't glue this one down, so it doesn't really matter too much right off the bat where you stick it. But somewhere about there is good for the preliminary test flights. We'll talk about adjusting this in a minute. Okay, so now we're done with these, we should probably test the circuit board functionality out. So to do that, you're basically going to go through the Army procedure in your quadcopter's manual, but for the most part, these are really simple. You just turn on the little flight controller thingy. It'll do its little flashy doodad thing. You turn the radio on, and you have to go full throttle and back down to arm this one. Then you notice the motors work. So to verify gyro connectivity, I'm just going to kind of turn this on a little bit and then shake it. Now if you notice what I was doing there, when I tilted this side down, this one would speed up, but this one would almost completely stop. So that means it's working correctly, because if the plane gets pushed by a gust of wind or something, and it moves this way, this will speed up to bring it back level, and this one will slow down to not fight it so much. Now we're going to check directions. So if you notice there, when I went left like this motor would speed up, so that would correspond with, going left, and vice versa for the right side. So this checks out, and you can do the same thing for here. It's the same procedure, nothing special there. Okay, so I've tested this one, and we verified this works as well. So let's go outside and test these. There's not enough space in the house to really test these, so we should go outside. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this. I'm going to show you how these things fly, because it does take a little bit getting used to. Now, we already verified that they work inside, so simply just power up and toss it. That's the best thing I can tell you. Now, it will take some finicking to get right, but hopefully we get it right off the bat. Yeah, look at that. I guess it took no fiddling whatsoever. Look at it go, it's amazing.
Oh man, I lost it in the sun.
You got it?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose I should show you what it looks like out of trim. So I did trim it up just a few degrees before launching it, which you mentioned in the house, but generally if it's not trimmed up enough, let's show you how that looks. It'll just nosedive no matter what throttle setting you have, and it will go too fast. And also, if you have too much up trim, it'll do something like this. It'll just kind of high alpha like that. I mean, you can still probably get it to work, but I noticed that if you get it right in the center of that, it'll fly better. And also requires a little bit more higher throttle setting to fly out just like this. Because I'm almost at full power and I'm not getting much altitude, which you can kind of see. Full power, come on. So, just trim it down a little bit and experiment with it. Also, you really want to experiment with the center of gravity, which you mentioned. It's really highly critical. With this one, it's, just like in the center, so that's why I did that. You can also slide this around too to get different effects. If you slide it forward, it's gonna be more nose heavy and you're gonna have a harder time maintaining altitude. You're gonna need to fly faster to make up for the nose heaviness. And if you're too far back, it'll just be completely unstable and generally pitch up, porpoise around, and maybe crash. So just adjust that too. So I'm gonna put this back to the center, roughly about just a few degrees like that, and off we go. It's a really nice day outside today too. Flying it can be a little funny too. You want to use very, very minimum left and right turning inputs, and throttle you want to do gradual power increases and power decreases, otherwise it'll fall or pitch up and stall. But I can pretty much fly it just one-handed, and generally you only need one hand too because it only has throttle and steering function, that's it. That was pretty good. So that pretty much explains the 3D printed one. Let's do the one where we built it using recycled materials. So for the foam one, it flies just a little bit different. It seems to be a little more turn sensitive because the motors are directly affixed to the wing, so any differential thrust blows air over the control surfaces too, or the wing, I guess, in this case. But when you do that, since we're wanting to turn this way, we're also blowing on the elevator tap surface, which is pushing it down, so it does behave just a little bit different. But I'll just show you that anyway. So booting up sequence is the same because I use the same quadcopter. I'll turn this on and turn the radio on. And hopefully this is in trim. Yeah, it's pretty much in trim. Yeah, you can see it teeter-totter a little bit more because of the gyro feedback.
What is a gyro?
It's an angular velocity detector.
Oh, not like the European
No, not
sandwich?
not like the sandwich. It's something entirely different, and it's called Euro, I believe.
You're wrong.
This works really well. It's so fun. Now, you really do want to do this on calm weather, too. Also, if you haven't can tell, it's dead calm outside, because these things do not like any sort of wind. I'm going to pitch it down just a little bit, just to kind of get it to fly a little bit more natural looking rather than so high up. that gyro oscillation feedback.
Ow. That's sharp.
So that's pretty much a wrap. I guess it works well. Really just experiment with the center of gravity and make sure you got your motor assignments are correct. You know, you'll probably figure out in the first few minutes. But just try retrimming it. The paper airplanes do last a little while for themselves, but you have to remember they are paper, and when they absorb moisture, they do deform. And after they deform, they're pretty much no good. So just toss it away and make a new airframe and keep trying. You can also really experiment with other airframes like I'll probably show you in a little bit. That works really well too, but for this general purpose, these standard paper airplanes just work really, really well for this. I'm honestly impressed how well it works. Also, I did some testing with some other quadcopter sizes, such as ones with 8mm brush motors and 6.5s. They don't seem to work as well. Really, just these nano quadcopters are your best bet. So if you really want to try this, get a nano quadcopter. You can also maybe try scaling up a paper airplane, but that's getting away from the true regular sheet of paper airplane, because I haven't seen anyone do a regular standard sheet of piece of paper and make it RC. I've seen custom ones and special heavy paper and special big designs, and I've also made the one on a foam, which you've probably seen. But this works really well, and I'm really happy with it. So enjoy this compilation of B-roll, because we spent a while working on this too to make it work. We took it all over the place, we flew in some indoors, and it's really cool. So that's it. Somebody's got burned up servo. Really? I think it's fine.
Really?
Oh,
yeah.
Man. I had even got you a new body.
Oh. It's just paper. Yeah, it's fine.